David Benavidez does not enter the pocket like a visitor trying to steal a moment and get out safely. He walks into that space like he has already decided it belongs to him. Then he begins closing off the ways a man can survive there. That is where his pressure becomes different from ordinary forward motion. Plenty of fighters can look busy when an opponent is standing still in front of them. Benavidez creates that stillness first. He does it by forcing small reactions, one after another, until the other fighter is no longer choosing offense, only choosing which part of himself to protect. A jab may raise the gloves. A right hand may freeze the feet. A hook to the ribs may drag the elbow down. None of those moments has to be spectacular by itself because the danger is in the sequence. Benavidez is not simply chasing a clean punch to the head. He is rearranging the defense. He wants the guard higher than it should be, the elbows tighter than they want to be, the breathing shallow, the counters late, and the confidence slowly drained out of every attempted escape. From the outside, the speed can make it look wild. For a fighter of his size, his hands come in clusters that are hard to track in real time. But the storm has order inside it. Benavidez usually begins with a punch that makes the opponent respect range. Often a jab, a long right hand, or a quick 1-2 thrown with enough authority to make the other man cover first and think second. The punch does not need to land perfectly. Its job is to make defense the opening language of the exchange. Once the opponent accepts that language, Benavidez moves his feet just enough to take away comfortable distance. He is careful not to fall all the way in. He does not want his arms smothered against a chest, and he does not want to give the opponent an easy clinch. He wants to be close enough to make the pressure feel physical, but loose enough to keep both hands working. That pocket placement is one of the quiet details behind his damage. He stands where the opponent feels crowded, but not where the opponent can simply hold him. From there, Benavidez begins mixing punches with different weights and speeds. A quick hook downstairs may arrive as a touch, not a full blast, but it still forces the body to answer. The elbow dips, the shoulder folds, the guard changes shape. Then the next punch travels through a lane that did not exist a second earlier. This is why his combinations can feel longer than they actually are. One punch is opening the door for the next one. A body shot makes the head available. A shot to the arms makes the center line softer. A short uppercut punishes a fighter who bends forward after trying to cover his ribs. The breakdown is gradual, but it feels sudden when it finally shows. Against a tight high guard, David Benavidez does not treat the gloves as a wall. He treats them as moving parts. Gloves separate when the body is hurt. Forearms widen when the ribs are under attack. Hands drop when a fighter becomes tired of catching punches that still bruise through the guard. That is why Benavidez is so willing to strike the frame. He will hit the arms, the biceps, the elbows, the shoulders, and the sides without acting as if those punches are wasted. They may not produce the clean sound that fills a highlight reel, but they change the fight in ways a camera does not always honor. A blocked punch can still make a man hesitate before throwing back. A shot on the elbow can make the guard slower on the next exchange. A dig to the ribs can turn a calm breath into a panicked one. Once that begins happening, the opponent is defending even while nothing clean appears to be landing. That is a cruel kind of pressure because it offers no rest. Benavidez's body attack is also more layered than the familiar left hook downstairs. He works with both hands and he moves between levels without announcing the switch. He can hook around the elbow, drive a right hand beneath the guard, and bring the left back upstairs before the opponent has finished reacting to the first shot. He can stab the body with a straight right when a fighter leans back to avoid head punches. That punch is important because it punishes one of the natural instincts against pressure. When a fighter feels David Benavidez pressing closer, the first instinct is often to pull the head away. It feels practical. It feels safe. The danger seems to move past the face. The eyes keep sight of the punches, and for one brief moment the defender believes he has stolen enough space to breathe. But leaning back only moves part of the target. The chin may travel, the shoulders may tilt. The torso is still there, waiting in the same lane. That is where Benavidez makes the choice feel expensive. His right hand to the body is not just a punch thrown downstairs for points. It is a warning that distance cannot be created by moving only the neck and waist. Once that lesson lands, the opponent has to defend with more than reflex. He has to rethink where safety actually is. If he stays upright behind the gloves, Benavidez can beat on the arms until the guard loses shape. If he folds forward, the uppercut starts to rise through the middle. If he turns away, the hook can chase the ribs and shoulder. If he tries to walk out, Benavidez steps with him and keeps the exchange alive. The pocket stops feeling like a fixed area of the ring. It becomes something David Benavidez carries with his feet, his reach, and his pace. That is why his pressure can feel heavier than his frame alone. He is not merely a tall fighter leaning on smaller men. He is a long, strong puncher who throws with the rhythm of someone trying to overload every defensive decision. There is weight in the shots, but there is also weight in the number of problems they create. The opponent is not only absorbing punches, he is being forced to choose again and again under stress. Hands high or elbows tight. Give ground or stand and answer. Tie up or risk punching back. Slip inside or protect the body. Each answer solves one danger while exposing another. A fighter can manage that once. He can manage it through a few hard exchanges. But over rounds, the timing begins to fray. The guard that snapped back into place now returns a beat late. The elbow that protected the liver starts drifting after contact. The counter meant to break the combination comes out after Benavidez has already finished his work. That delay is not accidental. Benavidez looks for it. He builds pressure in a way that makes the defender reveal himself before the real damage opens. Early on, he may touch gloves, shoulders, and forearms with fast combinations that do not all land clean. Those punches still matter. They show him how the opponent shells up, which side closes first, where the elbows travel, and whether the man wants to bend, clinch, pivot, or retreat. Then the same picture comes back with a different ending. A burst that began upstairs may suddenly finish under the elbow. A jab that froze the guard may be followed by a pause just long enough for the defender to peek out. A right hand that made the gloves narrow may create the space for a hook around the side. This is why his attack often appears to sharpen as the fight goes on. The pace is physical, but the pressure is also observational. David Benavidez is not only waiting for exhaustion, he is watching which habits exhaustion will magnify. A man who reaches for punches will begin reaching farther. A man who drops an elbow under stress will drop it sooner when the body starts hurting. A man who needs a reset after every exchange will find the next exchange starting before the reset is finished. The damage begins to stack in different places at once. The ribs burn from the hooks. The arms ache from blocking. The legs grow heavy from retreating. The mind slows because every movement seems to invite a new punch. By then, a broken guard is not one dramatic failure. It is the result of too many small emergencies happening together. One glove is late because the body shot pulled the elbow down. One elbow is wide because the shoulder has been battered. One foot is squared because the fighter tried to back away while still covered. One counter disappears because the eyes are no longer searching for openings. They are searching for a way out. That is the kind of disorder Benavidez understands. He does not need a perfect lane. He can punish the edge of a mistake. A narrow gap is enough for a short uppercut. A half-turned body is enough for a hook to land behind the arm. The truth about David Benavidez often appears after the first burst should have ended. Many fighters throw a combination, watch for the effect, then step out just long enough for both men to breathe and rebuild. Benavidez is different because he attacks the space where that rebuilding is supposed to happen. When an opponent has just blocked, just dipped, just rolled, or just dragged an elbow across his ribs to survive, Benavidez is already moving into the next layer. That is where his pressure becomes more than activity. It becomes interference. He is not simply trying to land the first clean punch. He is trying to make the defender repair one problem while another one is arriving. A glove that was glued to the cheek begins to hover. An elbow that was protecting the body starts to lift because the fighter wants to answer back. A shoulder that was hiding the chin turns too far because the legs are tired and the stance is no longer balanced. David Benavidez sees those small shifts as invitations. He does not need a wild mistake. The opponent to panic in some obvious way. He only needs the shape of the defense to be late by half a moment. That is why his combinations feel so heavy at close and mid-range. They are not just punches and bunches. They are punches aimed at the moment between damage and recovery. If the hands climb high, he digs underneath. If the elbows drop, he brings the short hook or the uppercut through the space that opens above them. If the opponent squares up to absorb the pressure, the straight punches find the middle. If he turns sideways to make himself smaller, the body becomes longer, flatter, and easier to chase. The exchange turns into a test of maintenance. The defender is constantly fixing one leak while Benavidez is creating another. That is the exhaustion people miss when they only count punches landed. The impact hurts, but the thinking hurts too. A fighter under Benavidez's pressure cannot relax inside his guard because the guard is being inspected, pulled apart, and punished from different angles. He cannot assume that blocking one shot means the sequence is over. He cannot assume that slipping his head has carried him far enough away. He cannot even assume that grabbing will save him unless he gets fully chest to chest and ties up both arms before Benavidez has room to work. In those narrow moments before a clinch becomes secure, Benavidez keeps finding little punches. A shoulder bumps for position, one hand comes free, a short shot touches the ribs. Another punch lands on the arm, not because it is pretty, but because it keeps the opponent uncomfortable. That matters because clinching is not only a physical tactic. For many fighters, it is a pause button. It is the place where they steal air, slow the pace, wait for the referee, and walk back to distance with their thoughts gathered again. Benavidez tries to take that pause away. He wants the opponent to feel that nothing has a clean ending. A blocked punch is not an ending. A step backward is not an ending. A shoulder roll is not an ending. A clinch attempt is not automatically an ending. Even a smart defensive reaction can become the beginning of a different problem if the next punch is already on the way. That is how his body attack becomes more than bodywork. It becomes a way to make the entire defense tell the truth. A fighter can act calm behind a high guard when the attack is mostly aimed at his head. He can nod, smile, talk, shake his gloves, and pretend the shell is solving everything. But when the ribs keep getting touched, when the arms are absorbing punishment, when the solar plexus is being stabbed as he leans back, the body begins to speak before the face admits anything. The elbows squeeze inward because they must. The breathing changes because it has to. The feet lose some spring because the midsection no longer wants sudden movement. Once the body starts making decisions for the fighter, the head becomes available in a new way. David Benavidez understands that a body shot does not always need to finish the fight on its own. Sometimes it only needs to make the next defensive choice worse. A left hook to the ribs can drag the right elbow down just enough for the follow-up hook to brush the side of the head. Pressure changes the meaning of defense because a man is no longer simply blocking what he can see. He is trying to make sense of a fight that is moving faster than his decisions. The ring begins to feel smaller. The safe exits begin to vanish, and every choice carries a little more panic than the one before it. A guard breaks in that atmosphere long before it looks broken. It breaks when the fighter inside it stops trusting what he reads. David Benavidez has made that uncertainty one of the central weapons of his style. He does not pressure only to make an opponent tired. He pressures to make the opponent wrong. That difference is important because the man in front of him is always searching for a pattern. He wants to know if the next punch is aimed at his head or his body. He wants to know if he should plant, move, clinch, trade, or hide behind both gloves until the storm passes. He wants the attack to announce itself clearly enough for his defense to arrive on time. Benavidez takes that comfort away by letting familiar looks turn into unfamiliar consequences. A jab may touch the forehead just to lift the guard and hold the eyes in place. The next moment, the right hand is not coming over the top, but driving into the ribs where the elbows were late. That same jab can return as a blunt tool, not to set up a knockout shot, but to pin the gloves and keep the opponent from escaping. A light touch can become a hook around the side, and once the elbow reacts, a short uppercut can split the middle. The defender thinks he has heard the first beat of the rhythm, then realizes the rest of the combination has changed. That is what makes close-range defense so exhausting against Benavidez. Inside, nobody is reacting with perfect clarity. A fighter is guessing from shoulders, habits, weight shifts, and tiny changes in tempo. He is remembering what happened 10 seconds earlier while trying to survive what is happening now. Against a predictable puncher, those guesses can become answers. Against David Benavidez, the guesses often become traps. He is not married to one favorite route once he gets close. He studies how the opponent protects himself, then starts turning that protection into a problem. If the opponent shells up, Benavidez does not treat the guard like a wall. He treats it like something with cracks, hinges, and weak points. He touches high to draw the hands upward, then digs low before the body is sealed. He brushes a glove aside, then rips around the arm before the defender can fold back into shape. He crowds the vision with one punch, then sends another through the center while the eyes are still reacting. Some of those punches are meant to land clean. Others are meant to move the guard just enough to expose what comes after. Some are simply there to force the wrong answer, so the real shot can arrive through the opening that answer created. From far away, it can look like volume for the sake of volume. Up close, it is a much crueler kind of pressure. The defender is being gassed to think while his arms are being knocked out of place. His body is being touched often enough to change his breathing. His eyes are being pulled from one lane to another before the next punch has even started. He may block 3 punches in a row and still be losing position badly. His gloves may rise higher than he wanted them to rise. His elbows may squeeze tighter than they should. His ribs may absorb just enough contact to make the next decision slower. His head may lean away from one danger and move directly into another. That is why Benavidez's inside work can feel less like a sudden burst and more like a steady wearing down of the opponent's choices. That pressure every punch to be full power to change the fight. A short body shot can drag an elbow out of position. A compact right hand on the gloves can shake the head enough to blur the next read. A cuffing hook near the ear can bend a fighter sideways and ruin his balance. Once the posture changes, the heavier punch no longer has to be forced. It has a place to go. That is the patience hidden inside Benavidez's aggression. His hands are busy enough to make the exchange seem frantic, but the work is rarely careless. He is reading while he is punching. He notices what the opponent protects first. Pressure is never just a rush with David Benavidez. It is a sequence of debts, collected one after another, until the defender realizes he has been paying interest from the opening bell. A jab touches the guard and the eyes go dark for half a second. A right hand crashes into the forearm and the shoulder has to absorb the weight. A hook digs at the ribs and the elbows tighten like doors being forced shut. Then the uppercut appears in the middle, and suddenly the same guard that was protecting the body becomes a problem upstairs. That is how the choices begin to shrink. Not through one dramatic mistake, not through a single careless lapse, but through the slow exhaustion of defensive certainty. The opponent starts by believing he can block, move, reset, and answer. After a few rounds with Benavidez, those options no longer arrive in that order. Blocking costs strength. Moving costs ground. Resetting costs time. Answering costs courage because every counter seems to invite something longer, faster, and heavier in return. By the time a clean lane appears, it does not feel like luck. It feels earned. It feels like David Benavidez has spent the entire exchange shaping the guard into the position he wanted, punch by punch, touch by touch, bruise by bruise. That is the intelligence hidden inside the violence. He is not simply throwing because he can throw. He is asking questions at a speed most opponents cannot process. Can the right hand stay home after the body has been hit? Can the elbow protect the ribs without opening the chin? Can the feet escape when the ropes are already behind them? Can the mind stay calm when the punches do not stop at the moment they are supposed to stop? Those questions pile up. A blocked shot still twists the glove out of place. A punch on the biceps still deadens the arm. A dig to the body still makes the lungs tighten. A jab against the guard still steals vision from the punch traveling behind it. Nothing has to land perfectly to matter. That is one of the cruelest parts of his offense. Benavidez understands that damage can be physical, tactical, and emotional all at once. He can hurt a man with clean punches, but he can also wear him down with the feeling that there is no safe version of defense. If the opponent shells up, the body is there. If he lowers the elbows, the uppercut is waiting. If he steps back in a straight line, Benavidez follows with those long arms and keeps the exchange alive. If he tries to clinch, he has to walk through more leather just to get close enough. The result is not always a sudden collapse. Often it is something quieter. A glove returns late. A chin stays exposed a fraction too long. A fighter who planned to counter decides to cover instead. A man who wanted to pivot settles for backing up, and backing up becomes surviving. These small failures are where Benavidez does some of his most important work. He sees the guard not as a wall, but as a moving set of hinges. If one hinge stiffens, another has to loosen. If the arms climb high, the body becomes available. If the elbows clamp down, the head becomes vulnerable. If the opponent tries to solve everything by standing still, the volume turns the pocket into a furnace. Many fighters throw combinations only when the target is already open. Benavidez keeps punching to create the opening while the target is trying to hide. That difference matters. Ordinary volume can be noisy. His volume has pressure points. He throws to the arms to make them heavy. He throws to the body to make the feet slow. He throws up the middle to divide the guard. He throws around the sides to punish the shell for being too narrow. The defender is forced to think about too many threats at the same time, and in boxing, thinking late can look exactly like being hurt. Inside that kind of storm, defense becomes a mental battle before it becomes a physical surrender. A fighter can accept one hard shot if he believes the exchange will end. He can survive two if there is a clear path out after the second. But when Benavidez keeps changing the height, the rhythm, and the angle, the mind starts searching for shortcuts. It wants the clinch before the arms are in position. It wants the ropes to hold it up before the feet have chosen a direction.